The gym was loud, music was playing, people were cheering, and two boxers were warming up in the ring. It was a local fighting event in a small town. Families, friends, and fans filled the seats. The announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the next fight of the night." Everyone clapped and shouted. They were excited to see the main event. The champion was fighting tonight. His name was Darren the Beast Cole. He was strong, tall, and undefeated. Then, the announcer paused. And now, entering the ring, a new challenger. The lights dimmed. Everyone looked at the entrance, waiting for loud music, for fireworks, for a team to walk out with the fighter. But nothing happened. No music, no lights, just silence. Then a shadow appeared. A young man walked in slowly. No trainer, no coach, no crowd behind him. He was alone. He wore simple clothes, a plain black hoodie and old sneakers. His head was down. He didn't smile. He didn't... "Look at the crowd." People began to laugh. "Who is this guy?" one man said. "Is he lost?" Another woman joked. Even the announcer looked confused but continued his job. Introducing the challenger, no name given. The young man stepped into the ring quietly. He took off his hoodie. Underneath, he wore a plain white shirt. His body looked thin. He had no muscles like the other fighters. No tattoos. No attitude. The crowd kept laughing. Where did they find this guy? "He's gonna get crushed. Darren will end this in 10 seconds. Even Darren, the champion, laughed when he saw him. "You sure you want to do this, little man?" Darren said, grinning. "I don't want to hurt you too bad." The young man didn't answer. He didn't even look at Darren. He walked to his corner, closed his eyes, and stood still. Darren looked at the referee and rolled his eyes. This is going to be easy. The bell hadn't even rung yet, but already people were calling it over. A small boy in the front row whispered to his dad, "Why is he not scared?" His dad chuckled. "He's probably too ding." The fight had started. The crowd leaned forward, in their seats. Phones were up, ready to record what they thought would be a short and funny moment. Everyone was sure the strange, quiet young man would fall in seconds. Darren, the champion, moved fast. He bounced on his feet, fists up, full of energy. He looked confident, almost too confident. He smiled at the crowd as he threw a few light jabs in the air, showing off. But the young man just stood there, still, silent. He didn't move. He didn't raise his hands. He didn't take a step. He just looked at Darren, not with fear, not with anger, but with cold, calm eyes, like he had seen pain that nobody else understood. At first, Darren laughed again. "What is this? You frozen?" he joked. He took a step forward, ready to punch. But then, he stopped. His smile faded just a little. He stared into the young man's eyes. For the first time, he felt something strange, something heavy in the air. His heart beat, faster though he didn't know why. "Come on," Darren said, trying to stay loud. "Fight me." But still, nothing. The crowd grew confused. Some laughed. Others whispered, "Why isn't he moving? Is this part of some trick?" Darren took another step, now annoyed. He threw a fast punch toward the young man's head, not to hit, just to scare him. But the man didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't even breathe hard. It was like he wasn't afraid of anything. Not the crowd, not the champion, not pain, nothing. Darren's hand froze midair. His punch stopped before it landed. He stepped back. The crowd gasped. Why did he back away? "Is Darren scared?" Even the referee looked unsure. He took a step closer. "Fighter, are you okay?" The young man finally moved, just his head. Slowly he turned and looked at the referee. His eyes were full of something deep, something broken. "I'm fine," he said quietly. His voice was low, soft, But somehow it filled the whole ring. The referee nodded and stepped back. The round continued. Darren circled him, looking for an opening. He threw a few more punches, but never close enough to hit. Each time he got near, something inside him said, "Don't. Be careful." He had never felt this before. He was the undefeated champ. No one had ever made him nervous. But this man didn't even lift a fist. And still, Darren felt like he was the one being hunted. Far away in the back row of the crowd, a man in a black coat watched silently. He didn't cheer. He didn't smile. He just stared at the young man in the ring. He knew that face. And he knew what that stillness meant. Back in the ring, the first round was almost over. The crowd was now quiet. Everyone waited, confused and curious. "Who is this guy?" someone whispered. "He hasn't even thrown a punch." And yet Darren hasn't touched. "Him," the bell rang. Ding! Round 1 ended. The young man walked back to his corner slowly. He sat down without saying a word. No coach, no water, no towel. He just closed his eyes. Darren sat in his corner too, but this time he looked different. He wasn't smiling. His coach leaned in. "What's wrong? You okay?" Darren looked across the ring at the man. "I don't know, man," he whispered. "Something about him. It's like he's not here to fight. It's like he's here for something else." His coach frowned. "Then knock him out fast." But Darren didn't answer. He just kept looking into those calm, quiet eyes. And for the first time in his career, he felt unsure. In the second row, a reporter took notes. She was supposed to cover the fight for a small sports blog, but now she leaned closer to her camera and spoke quietly. "There's something strange happening here tonight," she said. "This new fighter, he hasn't hit once. But somehow, the champ looks worried. We don't know his name. We don't know his story. But one thing is clear, this is no ordinary fight." Then came a short flashback. In a dark hospital room, that same young man sat beside a hospital bed. His little brother, thin and weak, was lying under a blanket. The young man held his brother's hand. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I'll take care of everything." His brother tried to smile. "Even if it means fighting?" The young man nodded. His face was full of pain. "I'll do anything." Back in the present, the second round was about to begin. The bell rang again. Ding! This time, Darren didn't move fast. He stepped forward carefully, eyes sharp. The young man didn't move either. He was waiting, not for the right moment to punch, but for something else. The crowd leaned forward again. Everyone was watching closely now. No one was laughing anymore. They were curious, worried, hooked, because no one knew what would happen next. And that silence in the ring, that silence was louder than any punch. The second round was still going. Darren circled the quiet fighter again, breathing harder now. He threw 2 fast punches. One missed. The second barely touched the man's shoulder. Still, the man didn't react. He didn't lift his fists. He didn't take a step back. He didn't even blink. The crowd was now silent. They were confused, scared, curious. Who was this man? Why wasn't he fighting back? And why did Darren, the undefeated champion, look so nervous? Then suddenly, as if the world around him faded away, the young man's eyes changed. He wasn't in the ring anymore. His mind slipped into a memory that still hurt like fire. 1 year ago, the small hospital room smelled like medicine and sadness. The lights were dim, machines beeped slowly, and on the bed, a boy no older than 15 lay with tubes in his nose and pain in his eyes. His name was Aaron. Next to him sat his older brother, the same man now in the ring. Back then, he wasn't wearing fighting clothes. He wore a wrinkled t-shirt and a worried face. His hands held his little brother's tightly. Aaron coughed weakly and tried to smile. "Did the hospital say anything?" he asked softly. His brother hesitated. He didn't want to answer. They said we need to pay by the end of the week." Aaron nodded slowly. He already knew. "It's okay." "No, it's not," the older brother said. His voice cracked. "I promised I'd take care of you. I promised after Mom and Dad died, I'd never let anything happen to you." Aaron squeezed his hand. "You kept your promise. You're still here." The older brother shook his head. He felt powerless. He had tried everything, cleaning jobs, delivery jobs, anything, but no job gave enough money for the surgery. The government didn't help. The system didn't care. Only one man offered help, a rich man who ran underground fights. "I have one option left," the brother whispered. Aaron's eyes opened wider. "No, not that. I have to. You said you'd never go back into the ring." "I lied." Back in the present, the third round had started. But the young man still didn't move much. He blocked a punch with his shoulder. He stepped aside to dodge another. No fear, no panic, just silence in his eyes, and a storm in his heart. Darren was sweating now. He'd never faced someone like this. Every time he threw a punch, he felt like he was punching a wall that refused to fall. "He's not normal," Darren whispered to himself. The crowd noticed too. "What's his story?" a girl asked her dad. "I don't know," the dad said. "But that's not the face of a beginner," a reporter whispered into her mic. "This man is hiding something. He fights like someone with nothing to lose. I don't know his name, but I know this. He has a past, and it's following him into the ring." The bell rang again. Ding! Round 4 had started. But this time, something was different. The quiet man no longer stood still. He moved, not fast, not wild, but calm, focused, like a storm that knew exactly where to go. The crowd noticed it first. "He's moving. Wait, is he finally going to fight back?" Even Darren, the champion, saw it. His body tensed. He raised his gloves, ready to attack, but something in him whispered again, "Be careful." The man took one slow step forward. His eyes never left Darren's face. Another step, and another. Darren couldn't take it anymore. He threw a fast jab at the man's chest. Swish! The punch missed. Before Darren could pull his hand back, it happened. The quiet man stepped in, turned his shoulder slightly, and let his right hand fly. A punch. His first punch. It wasn't wild. It wasn't angry. It was controlled, precise, heavy, and personal. The punch landed square on Darren's ribs. Thud. Darren's body folded slightly. He gasped. The sound of his breath leaving his lungs filled the silent arena. The crowd stood up. "You hear that?" That sounded like a truck. Darren stepped back, holding his side. He'd been hit before, hundreds of times, but this one was different. It wasn't just the power, it was the weight behind it, the kind of weight that doesn't come from the body, it comes from the soul. The sigh. Young man didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just stood still again, fists now raised, eyes locked. Far away, in a dark office, a phone rang. A man answered. "He's fighting again," the voice on the phone said. The man leaned forward. "Are you sure it's him?" I saw the punch. The man on the other end went quiet for a moment, then spoke coldly. "Tell the others. He's not done yet." Back in the ring, Darren was trying to stay calm, but his eyes showed fear. He threw a few more punches, but now he was guessing. He was scared. His punches were wild, his steps messy. The quiet fighter moved like water. He didn't waste energy. He didn't show off. He waited, and when Darren made another mistake, left his shoulder open for just a second. Bam! Another punch, this time to the jaw. Darren stumbled. The bata crowd roared. "No way! The champ is falling apart!" Even the referee looked surprised. The young man didn't press forward. He stepped back, gave Darren space. He wasn't trying to win fast. He wasn't trying to hurt him for no reason. He was proving something. Not to the crowd, not to Darren, but to himself. Flashback. Aaron lay in the hospital bed, smiling weakly. The older brother held his hand, just like always. "You can leave," Aaron had said. "You don't have to stay here." "I want to stay." "But you're a fighter," Aaron said, "and the world forgot you. They treated you like trash, but I know who you are." The older brother's eyes filled with tears. "You're not just fists, you're heart." Then Aaron said the words that never left his brother's mind. "Don't fight to win. Fight to show them you survived." Back in the ring, Darren looked at the man, breathing hard. "Who are you?" he finally asked. The man didn't answer with words. He answered with a look full of stories, of nights without sleep, of hunger, of hospitals, of broken promises, of love. Darren felt something tighten in his chest, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he could finish the fight. In the crowd, the reporter spoke softly into her mic. "I don't know who he is, but he's not just fighting in that ring. He's carrying something with him, and every punch he throws feels like a memory." The bell rang again. Ding! End of round 4. The crowd stood and clapped, some out of shock, some out of respect. The man walked to his corner quietly. Still no coach, no water, just him, alone, but not weak, never weak. And as he sat down, he looked up at the ceiling, not to the lights, but to someone who wasn't there anymore. He whispered one word under his breath. "Aaron." The crowd buzzed louder than ever. Everyone had seen it now. This fighter wasn't a joke. He wasn't some random man pulled off the street. He was real and dangerous. Darren, the undefeated champion, sat in his corner with a deep frown. His ribs still ached from the first punch. His jaw was sore, and his confidence gone. His coach leaned close. "You need to stop the fight," the coach whispered. "This guy, he's not normal." Darren wiped sweat from his face. "No, I won't quit." "Then knock him out fast, before he breaks you." Darren nodded, but deep down, he wasn't sure he could. Across the ring, the quiet fighter sat on his stool. Still no coach. No team. He didn't even drink water. He just stared ahead, lost in thought. Not about the crowd, not about Darren, but about the promise he made to his little brother, to Aaron. Flashback. Months ago. The older brother was on his knees in the street, holding a torn letter, a final hospital bill, too big, too late. He had lost Aaron. The machines had stopped. The nurses had cried. But he hadn't. He just stood in the hallway, silent, empty, broken. He walked home alone that night, and when he reached the small apartment they shared, he saw the boxing gloves sitting by the door. Old, worn out, torn. He picked them up and remembered the last thing Aaron ever said to him. "Show them your pain, not with words, with fists." That night, he put the gloves back on and never took them off again. Back in the present, the bell rang again. Ding! Round 5. Darren stood tall, but everyone could see the fear in his steps now. He charged forward with fast punches. Left, right, left. The quiet fighter blocked most of them. One hit his shoulder, but he didn't flinch. Darren kept going. Another punch. This time, it connected hard, right to the quiet man's cheek. Crack! The crowd gasped. The fighter stumbled back 2 steps, blood on his lip. He looked down for a moment. The referee stepped forward. "Are you okay?" The man didn't answer. He simply raised his fists again. The referee hesitated. "Are you sure?" The man nodded once, and the fight continued. Darren threw another punch, desperate now, but the fighter ducked. Then came the counterpunch, a sharp uppercut to Darren's chin. Bam! Darren dropped to one knee. The crowd exploded. The ref started counting. 1, 2, 3. But Darren stood up before 4. He was hurt, but not out. Not yet. Outside the ring, a man in a black coat stepped into the hallway. It was the same man who had whispered, "He's back," in part 3. He held a phone to his ear. "End the match," he said calmly. "Now." A voice replied, "What if he refuses?" "Then make him." The man turned and walked toward the arena doors. In the ring, the round continued. Darren looked tired, lost, broken, but the crowd had changed. They weren't laughing anymore. They weren't cheering for Darren. They were watching the quiet fighter with wide eyes and full hearts. Something about him pulled them in, his calm, his pain, his silence, his strength. Then suddenly, the fight stopped. The referee held out his hand. Man in a suit climbed into the ring. He whispered something in the ref's ear. The ref turned to the quiet fighter. "We're stopping the match," he said. The fighter looked up sharply. "Why?" "No ID, no official trainer, no papers." "They say you're not licensed." The fighter stood still. "They want you out of the ring." The crowd booed loudly. "This is wrong. He's winning. They're scared." But the fighter didn't move. He looked down at his gloves. And for the first time, his voice was heard. "I'm not leaving." The ref looked nervous. "Sir, if you don't leave..." "I don't leave," the fighter said again. "Not until this is finished." Darren looked across the ring. Something changed in his eyes. Respect, and maybe even guilt. He turned to the ref. "Let him stay." The ref blinked. "What?" "I want to finish the fight." The man in the suit stepped forward. "You're making a mistake." "No," Darren said. "Stopping this fight is the mistake." The crowd erupted in cheers, and once again, the bell rang. Ding! The match was back on. The fighter smiled, not with his lips, but with his soul, because, for once in his life, someone stood beside him. Not because they knew his name, not because they owed him anything, but because they saw him, truly saw him. He stepped forward again. This time, no fear. No pause. He threw another punch, and Darren blocked it. Then Darren threw his own. The fighter dodged, then countered, punch after punch, step after step. The ring became more than just a stage. It became a battlefield of stories, of struggle, of survival, of pain and purpose. In the crowd, a young boy clutched his father's hand. "Dad," he whispered, "I want to be like him." The father smiled, wiping a tear from his eye. "Me too, son." The crowd was louder than ever. They weren't just watching a fight now, they were watching a story. A man with no name, no trainer, no sponsors, still standing, still fighting, still silent. The referee glanced between the two fighters, unsure what to think. Darren, the champion, had bruises across his face and body. The quiet man, though bloody, stood strong, almost calm. Then something strange happened. People in the front row turned their heads. A figure was walking down the stairs, one step at a time. An old man, wearing a black jacket, eyes cold, back straight. He carried something in his hand, a small towel, but he didn't look like someone ready to stop a fight. He looked like someone who started them. In the ring, the quiet fighter glanced toward the crowd. His eyes widened for the first time. His body tensed. He knew that man. He hadn't seen him in years. Not since everything went wrong. Flashback, years earlier. The young man stood in a dirty gym, breathing hard. His hands were bruised, his clothes torn, but his eyes were full of fire. The old man stood behind him, watching. "You don't win with anger," the old trainer said. "You win with control." "But I am angry," the boy said. "I've lost everything." "Then fight smart," the trainer replied. "Let the world feel your pain." but only when you decide. That old man had been more than a coach. He had been the boy's guide, his protector, his only family after his parents died, until one day, the old man left. No warning, no reason, just gone. Now, years later, the old trainer was back and walking straight toward the ring. The crowd made space. Security looked confused but didn't stop him. Even they could feel something important was happening. The fighter stepped back from Darren. His eyes never left the old man. Finally, the trainer reached the ring and called out, "You still don't know how to guard your left side," he said with a small smile. The fighter didn't answer. He just stared. The trainer threw the towel over the ropes. "I'm not here to stop you," he said. "I'm here to help you finish it." Gasps spread through the arena. Is that his coach? Wait, that's the man who trained him? Reporters quickly looked for old photos online, and there it was, a picture, a younger version of the quiet fighter, standing beside the same old man, in the same gym, years ago. Everything clicked. This wasn't some mystery fighter from nowhere. He had once been a legend in training, then disappeared. And now, he was back. Darren lowered his fists slightly. "Who are you, really?" The fighter didn't answer, but the old trainer spoke for him. "You're fighting a man who trained in shadows, who fought in underground rings, who once beat 5 men in one night just to pay for his brother's medicine." The crowd went silent. Darren's eyes widened. "Your brother..." The fighter nodded once. Now Darren understood. He wasn't fighting for fame. Not even for victory. He was fighting for Aaron. For love. For closure. The bell rang. Ding! Round 6. And this time, the fighter had someone in his corner. The old trainer. He didn't say much, just gave a small nod. The fighter moved forward again, faster now, with more power, more control. Darren threw 2 punches. The fighter blocked both. Then, dodged the third. Then launched a counterpunch. Bam! Darren stumbled. The crowd jumped to their feet. The trainer spoke from the corner. "Good! Now stay sharp." The fighter didn't look back, but he heard him and he listened. The crowd was on their feet. Everyone was watching closely. 2 fighters. One ring, one was famous. Darren, the champion. The other, still no name, no voice, just power. He had no coach, no team, no one in his corner, until now. Someone was walking down the stairs. A man in a long black coat. His steps were slow but steady. He walked with purpose. Some older fans in the audience whispered to each other. Wait, that face. I think I've seen him before. Isn't that Coach Ray? No, it can't be. He disappeared years ago. But it was him, Coach Ray. The man who once trained some of the best fighters in the country, and then vanished. Now he was back, and he was walking toward one person. The quiet fighter. The fighter saw him. His body froze. His heart raced. He hadn't seen Coach Ray in years, not since the day his life fell apart, not since Aaron died, not since he quit fighting. Flashback, 4 years ago. The young man stood outside the hospital, his fists clenched. Inside, his little brother Aaron was gone. No more laughter, no more stories, no more hope. The hospital bills were unpaid. The pain was too much. He dropped his gloves at the door and walked away from everything, from boxing, from dreams, from Coach Ray. He blamed himself. He blamed everyone. And Coach Ray, he disappeared too, without a word. Now Coach Ray was standing outside the ring. He looked older, tired, but his eyes were still sharp. He called out, "You still drop your left after every jab." The fighter didn't answer, but his eyes locked with Ray's. No anger, just surprise. Ray stepped into the ring. The referee moved forward. "Sir, who are you?" Ray pulled out an old photo. "I trained him." The photo showed a teenage version of the quiet fighter with Coach Ray. Both were smiling. Aaron stood between them. The crowd gasped. Now they understood. This wasn't just a story about a nameless man. This was a story about loss and return. The fighter said nothing. Ray walked to the corner. He didn't speak much, just opened a bottle of water and held it out. The fighter took it. For the first time in the entire fight, he drank. He let someone help him. In the other corner, Darren watched in silence. He had questions in his mind. Who was this man? Where had he trained? Why did he disappear? And why was he fighting now? The bell rang. Ding, round 6. The fighter stood tall. Coach Ray called out, "Remember what I taught you. Pain is not the enemy. It's the reason." The fighter nodded once, then moved fast. His punches were smoother now, more controlled, more dangerous. Darren tried to counter, but missed. The fighter slipped to the side and hit Darren with a clean body shot. "Bam!" Darren groaned. Backed away. The crowd roared. This was no longer a lucky street fighter. This was a trained warrior, a silent storm. Coach Ray watched proudly, but his face turned serious when he looked up at a figure in the crowd. A man in a dark suit, standing in the back row. Watching. Not cheering, not blinking, just watching. Ray whispered, "They know he's back." Back in the ring, Darren was slowing down. He had trained for hard fights, but not like this. Not against someone who fought with purpose. Each punch the fighter threw felt like a message the world needed to hear. He wasn't fighting for money, not for fame. He was fighting for Aaron and for himself. The round ended. Ding! The crowd clapped wildly. Not just because of the action, but because of the story unfolding in front of them. 2 men, 2 paths, 1 final destination. In the corner, Ray wiped blood from the fighter's lip. "I should have never left," he said softly. The fighter looked at him, still no words, just pain in his eyes. Ray said, "After Aaron died, I thought I failed you. I didn't know how to fix it, so I ran." The fighter looked away. Ray sighed. "But I'm here now, and I won't leave again." There was silence between them. Then finally, the fighter gave a small nod. Forgiveness doesn't always come with words. Sometimes, it just comes with presence. Ray tightened the gloves and said, "One more round, one more step." The fighter looked back at Darren. This wasn't just a fight. It was a moment that could change everything. In the crowd, a woman wiped her eyes. She had never cared about boxing. But this was life. Backstage, someone made another call. "He's stronger than we expected," a voice replied. "Then bring in the one he fears." "What if he doesn't fear anyone?" The voice paused. "Then we'll remind him why he should." The stadium lights were dim now. The crowd had started to leave. The match was over. The unknown fighter, the man no one believed in, had won. Darren, the champion, sat in his corner, breathing heavily. He had lost, but he smiled, because deep inside he knew. He hadn't lost to just a man. He had lost to a story. The mysterious fighter walked toward the center of the ring, blood on his face, sweat on his chest, but his eyes were calm, his hands steady. Coach Ray followed behind him slowly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," Ray said softly. "Aaron would be proud." The fighter closed his eyes for a second. A single tear slid down his cheek. This fight wasn't for a trophy. It was for something deeper, something personal. People clapped, some even stood. They didn't care about his name anymore. They just felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Respect. But just as he was about to step out of the ring, the lights cut out. The stadium went dark. People gasped. Some screamed. A spotlight turned on, shining on the entrance tunnel. Heavy boots echoed. And then a tall figure stepped forward. A man in a dark hood, a scar across his cheek, followed by 2 bodyguards. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just pointed. To the ring. Straight at the fighter. The crowd fell silent. Whispers filled the air. "Who is that?" "Wait. I think I've seen him before." "That's Victor Kane." Everyone froze. Victor Kane. The undefeated underground fighter. The man who never fought in public. The one who was said to end careers. He had never come to a public event before, until now, and he wasn't here to clap. He was here for a reason. Coach Ray's face turned pale. He grabbed the fighter's arm. "You don't need to fight him," he whispered. "Not tonight." The fighter looked at him, then looked at the crowd, then looked at the man in the dark hood. He remembered something from long ago. Flashback. The night. Aaron died. The hospital room was quiet. The boy sat beside his little brother's bed. Aaron's breathing was weak. That night they had no money left for treatment, because days earlier, someone had cheated them. A fight. Promised money. Rigged. No payment. And the man behind it? Victor Kane. He ran the underground circuit. He took everything. He caused everything. Now that same man was standing just a few feet away, daring him to come closer. The crowd waited. No one made a sound. Even Darren stood up slowly. He looked at the fighter. "You don't have to do this," Darren said quietly. "You already proved yourself." But the fighter didn't move. His fists clenched, his jaw tightened. And then he stepped forward, back into the ring. Coach Ray sighed. He knew he couldn't stop him now, not this time. Victor climbed into the ring, took off his jacket. His body was covered in old scars, his eyes cold as ice. No referee, no rules, no bell. This wasn't a match. This was payback. The first punch came fast. Victor aimed for the fighter's face, but the fighter ducked, then slammed a shot into Victor's ribs. Victor grunted. He didn't expect that. Another punch, another block. The two circled each other like wolves. The crowd didn't cheer. They just watched. Frozen. This was no longer about boxing. This was personal. This was justice. Victor grabbed the fighter by the neck, tried to throw him to the ground, but the fighter slipped out, then landed a powerful punch to Victor's jaw. Crack! Victor stumbled, blood on his lip, but he smiled. "You've grown stronger," he said. "But still not enough." He charged again. This time faster. The two collided, fists flying, sweat dripping, hearts racing. Coach Ray screamed, "Use your footwork! Stay low!" The fighter remembered his training. He moved like water, quick, light, smart. Then, one perfect moment. Victor raised his arm. Too slow. The fighter hit him in the chest, then the side, then the jaw. 3 clean hits. Victor dropped to his knees. His body gave up, his face full of shock. He couldn't believe it. He had lost. The fighter stood over him. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just said one sentence, "For Aaron," then walked away. The crowd exploded. They had never seen anything like it. A silent warrior, a quiet storm, a man who came from nothing and left as legend. Coach Ray hugged him, tears in his eyes. "You've done what no one else could." The fighter looked at him, and finally, after all these parts, he spoke. Only 3 words, quiet but strong. "I forgive you." Outside the stadium, the night was calm, stars above. And for the first time in years, the fighter smiled. Not because he won, but because he healed.